Welcome to Shopify Experiences, a Mediaweb podcast. Today we have a special guest, Ricardo Luiz.
Hello.
Ricardo has 20 years of experience on user experience and product design. Ricardo, maybe we can start by telling us a little bit about your experience in the area.
Okay. I have mostly B2B experience. I started in startups doing augmented reality, virtual reality, interactive stuff. And then I moved into the more serious enterprise B2B. So I was for a few years at OutSystems doing all sorts of customer solutions, worked in almost every vertical that you can imagine. So energy, retail, banking, insurtech, you name it, probably my team and I have done it. And also, one of the goals that I had at OutSystems was to assemble the UX UI team, which, as you know, we did.
That is a good point. I wanted to ask you on that, particularly in your work in OutSystems. We talk a little bit about that you help creating the service, the design service in an enterprise. And not just the enterprise company, but in this case, a company that provides software. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
So the mission was that OutSystems, as I think most people know, is a low-code platform. So essentially, they sell licenses of the software platform. And one of the things that we realized was that one of the key aspects to sell or upsell or renew the contracts that our customers had with us was the time to value. So how short was the time in between their acquiring the license and they're actually doing something useful with that license? So, I don't know, changing a workflow in their system and then building it on top of OutSystems, or building their first app with OutSystems. And when I landed at OutSystems, it was a very engineering-led organization. So talking about design or user experience was something that was like, oh my God, what is this? It's so strange. And then slowly we started to, internally and then externally with customers, we started to deploy experiences and experiences services. We actually had to piece out all the offering that we had for user experience and design at the time. And then we expanded later for mobile and front end. So yes, it was subject talking about front end, back end discussions at OutSystems at the time, which was very fun. I was like, okay, so full stack, everyone is full stack. I know. And the fun part was that we actually grew the team, because organically, internally, and the customers understood that by providing better experiences that were designed and wireframed and thought about and then designed on top of it, actually people really wanted to use those solutions. Even when we were talking about boring enterprises like government stuff or I don't know, logistics related solutions and all of those, people understood if we provided a better experience, people would become more efficient in what they did. And they actually had more joy in the work that they did, because they finally had to interact with something that didn't look craved out of the 80s or the 70s or the 90s. So it was something that they can actually be proud of using, because it was a solution that actually did the job, and they were proud to use it because it looked good and it was intuitive to use as well.
Yeah. There are when we are making design to enterprise, I think there is a special challenge that doesn't happen, for example, in startups. And I'm talking to both things, because when you are making a design for a startup company or a company that have a product, everyone can understand that the design is very important, because the design is part of the experience. I think the challenge that you face there in OutSystems, or at least I'm seeing myself also with that challenge, is that when we are talking about enterprise, about software for internal software, is more challenged to explain the value of the design. How you convince the engineers? How which strategies? Because I still today you made this in OutSystems maybe 10 years ago, right?
Maybe, yeah.
But I think still today, when we are talking about enterprise software, governance software, and business to employ, I think it happens so much software. A lot of times they just want the functionality, and they ask directly to the IT to make the things, and don't. It's hard still to convince them that the design is important. Which strategies did you use to convince the engineers about user experience?
Yeah, it's a good one, because part of the last 10 years of my experience have been mostly in startups and scale-ups and unicorns and all of that. So, and in those companies, you're absolutely right, because their design is a first world customer. It is a first layer of thought when we are talking about those subjects. And the teams and everyone, they know how important it is, because when you do product development, inevitably you have to do experience and you have to do design, because you are offering something tangible for people to interact with your system in order for them to achieve something, which is the end result. When we are talking about enterprise, most of the things is the first concern is not to provide the best experience possible so people can actually fall in love with your product and all of that. Right? That's the mission of a startup, a scale-up. The enterprise reason is that we have to get this done. We have doesn't matter how.
Software for this.
Yes.
Doesn't matter
I
how
just
it
want
look.
to have a pathway to achieve something. And then our mission was to sit next to engineers and understand how the interactions were done, some of the flaws, some of the pains that they were dealing with. So basically, the stuff that we do with any customer, which is you sit down, you understand the problems, you start scraping the surface, you start understanding the root cause of those pains, and you try to translate that into experience. So that's the magic. When we talk about UX and UI, basically it's doing magic. It's turning people's problems and pains and digging deep into the root cause of that. And when you actually wow customers, is because you make something that you transform a flow that they showed you that had maybe 20 steps and it was ugly and you had to go to these databases and do this and do that. And all of a sudden you do the same at the end, but you save them like 15 steps and you have like 5 clicks here and there and you show them the information and it's feed forward and all of a sudden it's so much more intuitive. It's so much enjoyable even to work with it, that people understand, okay, this can be easy. And then they don't have to train people on how to use this very complex system that they only use like once a year or something like that. So that's the magic. What we did was we genuinely listened to people. So we sit next to our colleagues and then our customers, and we actively listen to what they had to say. And we ask a few questions. We try to understand a little bit about their struggles, what the flow is, what the business is. And then when you understand that, you actually can start providing them with tangible artifacts that they can see. And then they say, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, but that I would make this and that. And then we'll make adjustments. And by the end, you provide full-blown experiences or flows that people can actually use to solve their business. And very natural, and it's intuitive, and it's like it saves them time, it saves them the hassle to go and to memorize or to have a pen and paper kind of support to do something. We've seen this in, again, as I said, multiple industries. We did a lot of digital transformation. We turned a lot of paper processes into digital processes, and the first reaction that the customers had is like, I have this form in paper, now I need this form in digital way. And
they wanted just to translate. They wanted exactly the
almost
same.
like doing a document, or a PDF, and then it'll PDF, and then okay, now this is just what I wanted to do. Like,
or in Excel, sometimes they have an Excel. Can you create this in an
a better grid, a better table, a more beautiful table? No. Let's turn this into a simple process, like 3 steps, and you actually ask this information. If you already have it, you feed forward to the system, you save time. And you start to understand the transformation of that. The transformation I actually seen happening at OutSystems and within some of the customers that we, especially the ones that we had a longer relationship with, was that at the beginning it had to be us selling how important this was and why we wanted to do this with them. By the second, third iteration was them asking us to go there and fix that because they now have found a new one that we could nail or another one that we could work on. So the shift was very, very cool and for me was very exciting to see that we had to sell at the first, but then the value, the return on investment was so high that even internally, the teams would look to us for help to change the ways we were doing, even the interface that we had for developers to interact with the platform itself. We then had the saying in that all of a sudden, because we understood that even developers needed a GUI to interact with, right? So that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
great. And there are one part when we are trying to make actually. Sometimes it happened to me that the client think that they exactly know what they want, and they give us the requirements. Like we want to make a project, and it's there that we try to sell the user experience services, but they didn't experience, as you were saying. After they experience, they understand the value and then want to continue. But before experience that, they sometimes think that they know exactly what they want, and they want us to design just the UI. Like, I want this, and can you just design how this will look like? Did you have of course, you should pass tons of times with things like these. Did you have do you have an example about how you could convince the client, or the opposite? Did you have an example of a client that believed that he knows what he wants, and then at the end it was totally wrong? Sometimes they know. Sometimes can be tricky. They know also. But I believe when you start talking with users, you understand things and you bring things to the table that they didn't think.
I think the best way to make sure that you have something that fixes their problem or that actually solves what they are trying to solve is by doing early testing. So even if it's just wireframes or clickable prototypes or something like that, because if you confront them with whatever they design at the beginning. So imagine that what I like to do is I like to gather some context and then look back imagine that a customer even draw something, I don't know, in Paint or in Figma, whatever, and they just design the whole page or the system itself. And then if you understand context, if you talk with 2 or 3 people from the team, you actually understand what they are doing, what they want to get out of the system and all of that. And then you meet again with the customer and say, okay, walk me through in this thing that you design, how you go from A to B.
Okay. Yeah.
And then usually, I click here, I click, and okay, you have 10 clicks and you have this. And then you say, by the way, will you allow me to show a little bit something a bit different? And then you have your wireframes and say, okay, what do you think you can do here? I can then say that I can do this, and then I do that, and then that's like 3 clicks instead of 10.
Yeah.
Or you have the most important information right there at your disposal, and you don't have to look into the 3 different places for the same information. That, by the way, is key for what you're doing in that situation. So that context leads you to a better experience. Yeah. So sometimes it was that. And most times we had customers that had very strong opinions about something, and then even callers sometimes. So we really had to show them A to B. It's not saying, I am the authority, I know better. But it's like, okay, walk me through the experiences. Can you interact with it and show me how we interact? Does it work for you? And people will say, maybe there's a better way.
It's actually a really, really good point, because when you start interacting with the client, when you start making questions, and if we make the homework, like trying to understand better the business, then we start question some things that they think that they know, but then we question and they don't have totally a answer, or we start giving examples of better ways to do the same thing. And is very useful. I like that, because the ones that they think they know exactly what they want, when they start saying that they might not exactly know the best way, or they don't know the answer of some questions that we do, then they start feeling, oh, maybe I should trust on these guys to help me on this.
And the magic is sometimes we do it in a way that they feel that there was their own idea. Okay, and there's like, oh no, this is so much better. Forget it. This idea is much better, and then it's like, this idea that I had is much better. It's like and we don't care, because what we want at the end is that they have the best experience possible for the customers and for themselves.
And if they are happy that they think that they are the ones that.
But that's doing our magic, our managing the force and a Jedi movement that we have sometimes in the UX UI, is that doing things in a way that at the end people think that that's what they wanted all along. Okay, for me, that's the biggest accomplishment anyone in the area can have at the end, is that having people having the feeling that, oh, this is really what I wanted. This is really what I had in mind when I thought about the good experience for this. This was it. Yeah. Okay, and then okay, my job here is done. Cool.
Yeah, great. So, but today we are in a different world. We were talking in OutSystems 10 years ago, the importance of experience, but the world is changing. AI is changing every single business. How you think AI is changing the user experience work?
Yeah. So I think two things happen, right? So one is on the process side, on the internal side of things, we have to leverage AI, right? So you can simulate stuff that you couldn't before. You can actually do a much better research of the market, because you can just develop an agent, and then the agent scrapes the whole of the internet and then gives you back the 10 best examples of comparables to that same customer, or significant pains in that vertical space that you're trying to explore with the customer, or something like that. So definitely something that would take us, I don't know, days or weeks sometimes, 10 years ago, now you can do it in a couple of hours. You have it, you interact it, you tweak it a little bit, and you have a better understanding of that. So it allows you to do faster, better, some of the things that we usually do in the UX side of the process. So like, okay, interviewing something, or interviewing someone, doing user interviews, and then you had to go and rewatch them and take the notes and doing. Then now you have all of this transcribing, processing,
and resuming, and
AI tools, and you can even stem the most relevant findings, the most frequent ones, and all of that. So you can identify patterns that you don't have to go and rewatch them and stop them and rewatch them. So imagine that you had, I don't know, 10 hours of user interviews. That would keep you busy for the week, because you couldn't do anything else, right? Now you can do the 10 hours of interviews, and you do maybe 2, 3, 4 hours of analysis, and you're done. So in 2 days, you wrap it up.
Yeah,
you save 3 days.
You save a lot of time by automating, like
by using
processing,
by using these tools and putting them in your process, in your discovery, in your context gathering process, and then it allows you to have more time to think about what is really important, which is what would be the best solution for the customer, testing new solutions, iterating, doing some wireframing, and a lot. Even the wireframing now, we know that if we want a quick proof of concepts, man, if we have already a baseline for something, or you have a library of past experiences, you can very easily use an AI tool and say, okay, I want an interface with these characteristics, blah, blah, and you can scrape it very quickly, and you can just show to the customer.
Even high fidelity, there are some tools that make that, not to do the wireframes, but the high fidelity.
Everything.
Of course, then the UI need to be aligned with the brand. These kind of tools are accelerating so much the internal process of designing, but also...
And that's part number one.
Part
number 2, it's the external. So we have a lot of noise about AI. Okay? And the fun part about this is that just the other day, someone was asking me about my academic progress. And I said, you know that I started in computer science. And then I moved to psychology, to neurocognitive science. Because in my head, I really wanted to learn how people thought and learned and how the brain worked a little bit, because I wanted to go back to computer science and do artificial intelligence. That was my secret plan at the time. And
when you were studying,
we are talking like 25 years ago. Okay. So it was definitely not the same AI that we have usually hear today. So it
still exists.
It still exists. It's the same, right? Yeah. So, but it has changed, and now AI, mostly what people call AI, it's the LLMs. Yeah, it's the generative
AI, the natural language AI.
People actually forgot there's something called machine learning. People forgot about all the other layers of what we call AI. Okay, so now it's Gen AI, and everyone knows what an LLM is, or even if they don't, they say they do, because they interact with ChatGPT, and that just disrupted the whole thing. So again, there's a lot of noise, but if we go and meet with customers and stakeholders in small, medium-sized business, even bigger business, enterprise business, people are very confused about what it is that we can do with this AI. Right? Is this just the ChatGPT of things, and then I can query stuff more easily? Is it because I have a scraper that can do something, and then it's just faster? So the challenges that I see that we have, and an opportunity that we have on this side, when we are thinking the experience now, we actually 10 years ago or 5 years ago, we stopped at the UI layer. So you had the UX and then the UI layer on top of the experience. And this was the best that we could do for someone. Is that how could we enhance their ability to interact with the system through experiences that were well thought, and then something that was very well designed on top of that. Okay, so that made something enjoyable, intuitive, and everything. Now we have a third layer on top, which is the AI. And the AI is not about the artificial intelligence aspect of that, but what artificial intelligence brought was the ability to have natural language processing. So what we are saying now is that people don't even have to know how to interact with the system. In a very extreme case,
they can talk with the system.
They can talk with the system. They can speak their own language with the system, and the system probably does what they want to do. Okay, so that's a challenge. It's nowadays, if we look into businesses, how can we help them having all of these AI now every day? So it's by next week, probably some of the tools of this week are deprecated, and then we have new ones that do a lot more stuff. Or then we have, a beehive of agents that do a lot of stuff, and then they are able to do this and that. So what we need to understand is that how to orchestrate all of this, right? And if we look into a business and we are able to decompose and understand really the context of that business, then we are better equipped to help the customers to see what is the best use of this AI layer or that layer. Maybe it can be an automation, right? And it's still AI. Maybe it can be something of, no, that's generative AI. We have to do an SLM or an LLM, and then you can actually do something with it. Because you can help people doing adaptive stuff. Like, okay, so the interface, what you get from the system adapts to you, because you probably do a given amount of things, limited things with that system, and it will recommend stuff. So it can be very proactive in recommend. Oh, you are searching for something, maybe you are looking for these things, because I know that it's like February and you have a lot of invoices to go and check, so you really want to check all of those. Maybe
can give suggestions.
All of these things that you can actually, if you will really understand how AI can transform the business, then you can work with your customers, with your stakeholders, to say, okay, so if we have this system and you have all of these challenges and you waste this amount of time to do this and that, probably if we introduce this AI bit, then we can optimize it, we can streamline it, we can make it better, we can recommend, we can make the lives of people that interact with the system so much better, because they can actually fetch information, recommend stuff. We can shorten the cycle of the amount of interactions needed to
automate
get
a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that the design teams and focus now about the design part, challenge that I think the design teams now have is that we should include these AI systems since the beginning of the design. But a normal UX UI design nowadays, then they need to know so much about what exists, what is possible about AI. And one pattern that I'm seeing is that I think some of the design teams probably are struggling that because if they continue designing as they were designing, they are designing legacy systems. They are designing systems that work
they are good, but they are not great.
Yeah. But they could leverage in some point some part of AI that will automate some part or recommend or complete the application in a certain way.
I agree. And one thing, but if we go back a few years, it was the same before someone used a design system or before someone knew how to leverage, I don't know, design materials like Google design materials, something like that. Before that, everyone was inventing their own stuff.
Yeah.
And it was super messy because you would look into 10 different systems and there would be 10 different ways to do a checklist or to do a radio button or to do something. I actually see this as more of the same. So what is changing is the tools that we have available to do our job, right? And our job is still the same. It's still how can we make experiences for these people that need to do a given job. So you have input and output and everything in between, it's up to us.
Yeah, the objective is the same, is to create amazing user experience, easy user experience. Now we have one more tool that we can put in the process to make that happen.
One of the goals that we really have is to actually make the business better for someone, right? And I usually think about this as the people that have to interact with those systems to do something in the business. So I see this as an opportunity to save, again, this is almost like the industrial revolution that is happening right now in the digital terms. Okay?
Yeah. Because everything can be reinvented now. Every system can be recreated in a different way.
Yeah. And you are going to speed things up a lot, and people will have to adapt. People will have to understand how it is that they can best get value out of these systems that we will now be doing and putting into. But as soon as they will become a lot more efficient doing this. And I don't know about you, but I'm never happy when I have to do repetitive jobs. Okay,
Yes.
And I understand that this is a challenge for the working force, but it's something that I think it will value everyone's work if they are the supervisors, the orchestrators of a given system, instead of doing 10 times an hour the same thing over and over and over again. So it's an opportunity for everyone, and I do think that it's not just shoving AI on everyone's throat, but it's if there's something that can make it easier, can optimize the business and make it so much more intuitive for everyone, it's a lost opportunity if you don't.
Yeah,
right?
And as you're saying, it make the work of the people more a premium level. Like I will not making the tasks that a machine can do for me. I'm supervising the machine and I'm making the tasks that need to be a human.
You're the
thinking.
maestro.
They need to exactly.
You will be the maestro of things, and then again, at the end of the day, you will have a lot more value for the organization because what you can provide was never achievable before. So it's transformational. The impact that someone can have with their own job, saying, yeah, now I can bring X revenue. Now I can do X amount of things. People will have to readapt. Probably, yes, we have to readapt because we have to know these things from the beginning. But the amount of opportunities that will open are endless for this. And we are talking about even maybe more traditional sectors. They will be affected by it as well because people will be used to interact with the system that will provide them the information. like now we have streaming. No one besides a given generation, probably like 60% of people nowadays, they don't watch normal TV. They watch on-demand TV, streaming, YouTube, and everything else. That was impossible 20 years ago. That was impossible even 15 years ago. 10 years ago, it was just a mirage of what was happening. So we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
But things will change.
It will change. And I'm sure that there's an AI layer on top of things that will be commoditized. So this is not going to be hype forever. It's just going to be assimilated, and we have to adjust this and make it part of the systems, make it part of how we interact with stuff. And for me, being someone that loved science fiction ever since I know myself as a person, even from a young age, I was reading... I still remember this. An uncle of mine had some very old Isaac Asimov books, and then during the summer I would read them. I was like, "Oh man, what an amazing world! And things fly, and robots are helping people and doing this."
So we are getting on that age.
And then you watch stuff when you grow up, and then you see, oh, can we talk with? So not the Al from 2001 Space Odyssey, okay, that freaks out, but then we can interact naturally by speaking, by thinking with these systems, and then things will happen. We are very much closer to that reality now than we were a few years ago. But for me, the most exciting thing is that business can actually leverage this. This is not just something for the movies, not something for science fiction. Is that we can actually now make something that was very painful, very hard, that was energy driven, draining in given business, and you can transform it. You can make it something that is like that. You can ask for, can you give me the logistics of month X on product Y, and then it's there. Oh, and by the way, organize it in the table.
Yeah, can you give us some examples, or can you think in a system, maybe in enterprise, or maybe more in terms of startups can be anything, but maybe in terms of enterprise. Can you give us some examples about things that in nowadays can be totally automated, or can be more streamlined to make digital tasks that were impossible before generative AI?
Wow. Stuff that was really hard to do, to create recommendations in complex systems, right? So you had the Netflix in the last few years. You had stuff like Spotify and Netflix really playing a little bit with it, trying to, because their business is about engagement, it's about your attention, and then they would say, okay, so if we can better engineering this engine in the back end that understands what people are watching or listening to, and then they can do it. So now you imagine you can do this with everything, okay? And if you now have a system that is aware of the contexts, okay, you understand trends, you understand seasonability. So imagine that you are a retail company, and you have Black Fridays, you have sales periods and all of that, and you have down periods, and then you have up, and you have spikes on demand like Black Friday and events like that. You can equip your organization to have these things almost like plans in the blueprint for you, and then everything is triggered automatically. You don't even have now to have a second thought about, oh my God, we are 5 weeks away from Black Friday. I have to make sure that the logistics are there, that the business are there, that the system is you don't have to do that, right? Because you have scalability at hand. You have ways to automate all of these things and adapt to that level of scale. So you asked me for an example. I don't know, but what I can say is that this is going to be seamless in every single business that you can think about. And we are watching it in very interesting areas like health, right? Healthcare and pharmaceuticals. Man, no one thought about using, well, there was a bit of some initiatives crunching and doing some simulations of models to try and find new molecules and all of that. But now looking at tomography and X-rays and all of that, and early spotting diseases, or helping like physicians understand that there's a possibility of that this grain that you didn't understand, that you couldn't see probably in this image, probably something.
Yeah, but there we are talking more about serious AI, machine learning, etc. Right?
And that's what I'm saying, is that you can look at the spectrum of enterprise, and even in areas that you never thought of using an AI before, now you see in them. Now imagine putting this into action in fintech, insurtech, verticals like retail, energy, and all of that. I can imagine the predictability that some business can have now to better manage their, I don't know, workforce even, or the availability of stocks, the availability of a given thing, and even providing, and imagine adapting your interface according to the time of the year that you have and the priority of tasks that you have to manage. It's not having a prioritized list of things to do, is that your interface actually adapts to the things that you should focus at a given time.
Yeah.
That's magic.
Yeah, you were talking, and I was imagining what could be like a really complex system with these. And actually, what was coming to my mind is that in our days, when we think in a digital system, a digital software, we think so much about the interface. I think there are a lot now that happen in the background. Like instead of the interface, like the interface is necessary for a human to interact with the system to do some task.
Right.
If part of that task happen automatically, it seems that exists a workflow that can exist some workflow in the background that is triggered when something happens, and then can process data, or can send emails, or book appointments, or do or whatever in the back without the interface. Like I think part of the systems that need an interface for someone to do things manually, it will be a flow that happens in the background, and no one see it. And then just in the middle of the workflow, maybe there are a point that a human need to validate something, and for that, then you need the interface. For that, you need interface for the person to check, validate, and confirm or reject or configure the necessary parts. So with this, I was imagining, okay, the most modern system could be kind of a system that you log in, and it's just giving you suggestions of the next step. Instead of you to think, it's just asking you to confirm. I need to send you this email. Can you confirm if it's correct? Send. You need to order. Something for a supplier. Is true? You need this material? Yes, I need. Confirm. Like. The future probably will be mainly a human confirming things, not thinking,
confirming, tweaking, supervising. I like to think about it as supervision, right?
Yeah.
So the way I see it, imagine the most outrageous interface that I can think about is just a quick way for you to interact, either text or voice or image, whatever. And then you have just an area where you can actually supervise what's happening, right? So, because again, for legal purposes, you may have to review, or you may have to have a second look at something. So you have to have a space for you to review something. But it's as simple as you were describing. So you have a way to input and or validate that, yes, there's the flow that the system now needs to comply. And then you check it at the end. So this is what we are talking about, right? Okay, cool. Done. Yep. And then it's done. Cool. And then you can use actually your brain for thinking about strategy, for thinking about what's next, for designing the next flow that needs to be, or interacting with the system to actually adapt it and interact it, or explore new ways of optimizing the operation, doing something. So yeah, I think that the input is probably our biggest challenge in terms of current experience and design. Is how do you provide a good inputs area, and then a good visualization supervision area that makes sense for these systems? I think the magic is there. because this is going to be a change, right? And you cannot go from the traditional systems now to just a that white dot in the computer just blinking and say, what do you want to do next, like a ChatGPT prompt interface. You can't. I think that the shift is too big, right? Yeah. So you will have to slowly make some changes, and actually the system will learn with that, which is a good opportunity. But I see the shift in between the interfaces that we do nowadays and the interfaces that we'll be doing. I don't know if it's in years or in months, but there will be a shift. Okay? And what we need to understand when we are building these experiences is that this is a change process, right? And we have to provide the elements that provide the safety net for people to actually trust the system, that it's actually doing those things. Because as you were saying, most of these things now can happen in the background. Invisible, as I was describing, like it's like 3 levels down.
And I think is a challenge for user experience designers. Like they need to start thinking not what they can put in the user interface, but what they can remove from the user interface and put it somewhere in an automated flow.
Yeah, so it's a good analogy, and I think that we can do something with it, which is like there's the visible part of the iceberg, and now it will be the invisible part of the software. It was already there, but now the visible part of the iceberg is very small, very small, and then you have everything in below that, which is going to be fun. Yeah, but I like that analogy that we have now. It's to remove clutter from the visible parts and the visible layer, and how to better orchestrate it in the invisible part so that the right things bubble and surface up. And that sounds, we have to do something with that image for sure.
We'll try to do these more and more and better in Mediaweb. We'll have your help. I think I didn't mention in the beginning. We are start working with you officially. And let's we'll work with some nice projects. Let's see what
exciting times ahead, and definitely it's going to be a very interesting couple of months, seeing how we can enhance UX with AI and how we can orchestrate things in customers that actually can take value out of AI by putting some AI pieces on it, and how we can actually leverage AI to streamline their operation, which is going to be very, very interesting. So it's a lot of return on investment that we can provide to stakeholders that we are going to interact in the next few months. And I'm really excited to see what it is that we can actually build and orchestrate.
Also. Yeah, let's do it. Yep. And for you guys, thank you for listening to this episode. We see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you.